All right, we are live and we are recording. Welcome to our press conference. I'm going to go ahead and let Dr. Kessler is the president. Howard Kessler is the president for Physicians for Social Responsibility, the Florida chapter. They are the ones that are hosting this press conference, and he's going to kick us off and let us all know why we're here and what we're going to talk about today.
Well, very good. And thank you very much, Lakey. And on behalf of Physicians for Social Responsibility Florida, I thank all of you for attending this virtual press conference this morning. Physicians for Social Responsibility has worked hard addressing the dangers of nuclear war and climate change. In 1985, PSR was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for its work in stopping the atmospheric testing of nuclear weapons in the US, and shared in the Nobel Peace Prize in 2017. We continue with this work. And PSR has been working tirelessly on many challenges of the worsening climate crisis that we have and its negative effects on our health and our planet. Here in Florida, burning hundreds of thousands of acres of sugarcane puts enormous quantities of carbon and small particulate matter in the air. This worsens the negative effects of climate change. But taking a step backward, our governor promised to open Florida safely. He failed. He failed completely because of his actions and inactions. Over 18,000 lives in Florida have been lost to COVID-19. 80 deaths a day in Florida. Our governor cannot accept science when it does not support his political agenda. His record displays a callous disregard for the health and well-being of the people of Florida, and especially for our most affected communities of color, the poor, and the marginalized. He refused to mandate the use of face masks, which have been scientifically proven to work. He's even ignored advice from our best scientists, infectious disease doctors, and epidemiologists. And now our governor has turned his blind eyes and deaf ears to the burning of sugarcane in South Florida. That contaminates our air with toxic pollutants, and it compounds the mortal and morbid dangers of COVID-19. Air pollution contributes to heart issues, lung and breathing problems, cancers, premature births, just to name a few. People with these problems are more susceptible to having worse outcomes should they become infected with COVID-19. But here, we live in a state that has written regulations that allow sugarcane burning when the wind is blowing towards community of color, but protects the more affluent communities. How can we live in a state that allows such prejudicial regulations to exist? Does Governor DeSantis think the more affluent communities should have cleaner air than those less affluent? Florida leadership needs to end this unfair and harmful nonsense. PSR Florida is fighting climate change and its adverse effects on health. But we will not be silent in the face of these ongoing egregious practices in our state. Governor DeSantis needs to end political prejudice now and protect the health of all Floridians. On behalf of Physicians for Social Responsibility Florida, I thank you again for attending this press conference. We have some very good speakers following me, and I urge you all to wear a mask. Thank you very much. Lakey?
Thank you, Dr. Kessler. And thanks for filling us in on what's going on in South Florida and how our government needs to get involved. Our next speaker is going to be representing Florida Clinicians for Climate Action. And please welcome to the mic, Dr. Ron Saff.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Ronald Saff, and I'm with Florida Clinicians for Climate Action and Florida Physicians for Social Responsibility. It's a gross injustice when school children who live just 40 miles away from Mar-a-Lago can't go outside to play because of the poisoned air from sugarcane burning in their communities. It's a gross injustice that sugarcane burning is allowed when the winds are blowing west, which will harm the Black and Hispanic communities, and not to the east, so that predominantly white affluent people won't be affected by the polluted air. It's a gross injustice that political leadership, including Nikki Fried and others in a position of power, are not doing enough to protect the interests of the Black and brown communities who live in the Glades. And it's a gross injustice that the Palm Beach County School District facilitates the leasing and burning of sugarcane fields adjacent to Rosenwald Elementary School, exposing children they are entrusted to protect to dozens of harmful chemicals that can harm their health in numerous ways, including the development of cancer and learning disabilities for $10,000 a year. It's hard for anyone to imagine that in Palm Beach County, one of the wealthiest areas in the world, that the school district is selling out the health of these children, many who are already living in poverty. We all know cigarettes are deadly. There are warning packages on the boxes warning of the risk of lung cancer. Sugarcane burning is also deadly as well. That's because some of the same chemicals in cigarette smoke are also in the sugarcane smoke, including formaldehyde, benzene, and other polyaromatic hydrocarbons. The coronavirus is deadly enough, and we know that the predominant people who live in the Glades, including the Latino and African Americans, are disproportionately impacted compared to those who live in the wealthier areas of Palm Beach County. Breathing polluted air worsens the impact of the coronavirus. It's a medical deadly double whammy. Additionally, people who are recovering from COVID-19 may have diminished lung function and therefore may be at particularly high risk of developing respiratory health effects, such as increased coughing, wheezing, and shortness of breath after exposure to smoke from sugarcane burning. The Centers for Disease Control has recommended that jurisdictions consider suspending agricultural burns during the pandemic. Air pollution is much more prevalent and deadlier than most people realize. Air pollution lives of the average person worldwide by almost 3 years and causes more deaths than the total from wars, malaria, AIDS, and smoking combined. So we are all aware that we're in a global coronavirus pandemic, but we're also facing an air pollution pandemic. Most people, when they think about air pollution, they think about China or third world countries like India and Pakistan. But there are surges of pollution in the Glades that are certainly worse than many cities in China on some days. Air pollution isn't cheap because it devastates health. Air pollution costs this country $866 billion a year approximately. And it's thought that if we could improve the air quality across the country by just several percentage points, we could save billions of dollars in healthcare costs. There is a risk for anybody, but particularly the elderly and the very ill and those with diabetes. It is important to keep in mind that both air pollution and smoking are preventable, but over the past several decades, much less attention has been paid to air pollution than to smoking. There is an increase in the amount of heart attacks and asthma attacks on high pollution days. When the air pollution levels rise, so do the amount of asthma attacks, heart attacks, and strokes. In fact, the World Health Organization has called air pollution the silent killer. Air pollution stunts lung growth in childhood. There is no subsequent catch-up growth later on in life. And then at a certain point, everybody's lungs start to decline. Because of the stunted growth, there is an increase in mortality. The reason this happens is because air pollution causes systemic inflammation. The immune cells in the body think that the air pollution particles are bacteria. So it goes after it and tries to kill it by releasing enzymes and acids. These proteins spread into the body, affecting the brain, the kidneys, pancreas, and virtually every organ system. Air pollution is linked to numerous cancers, including lung, bladder, and gut. And also there is an increase in irritable bowel syndrome. Even skin and bones are affected, with skin aging and brittle bones associated with toxic air. Perhaps one of the most disturbing impacts of toxic air is the damage to the human reproductive system. Fertility is reduced and miscarriages are increased by exposure to air pollution. Air pollution also contributes to low birth weight of babies and has led to other negative consequences such as low IQ. We also know that exposure to dirty air causes an increase in childhood obesity, leukemia, and mental health problems. There's no safe level of particle pollution for some people. So for instance, if you're an elderly person with heart disease and lung disease, a tiny bit of air pollution is potentially enough to kill you. Medical groups, including the Florida chapter for the Florida Clinicians for Climate Action, the Florida chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, representing approximately 2,600 pediatricians across the state of Florida, and the Florida chapter for Physicians for Social Responsibility, opposes sugarcane burning in the glades. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saff. That was very insightful. Our next speaker is actually coming to us as a pre-recorded video. The name of our next speaker is Kina Phillips. She is a directly impacted community member. She is a part of the South Bay community and a Stop the Burn activist. I am going to be screen sharing her pre-recorded video. So hold on for just 1 second as we.
We didn't land on sugarcane. Sugarcane landed on us, and a lot of people ask me, why am I in the fight? But the fight was knocking at our doors in our communities way before I got in the fight. But when it knocked at my door, when my grandson was born and was having problem with breathing because we have sugarcane right in our backyard, then I had to get in the fight. I had to fight because I didn't want to leave that burden on my kids and generations to come. I had to fight because if I don't fight, they would have to fight. I can't leave that fight on them. No one had a voice. Everybody was silent and intimidated. So I stood in the gap, and I've been fighting for almost 5 years for my community. We're impacted by air pollution due to outdated practices, which cause respiratory problems, cancer, and also skin issues. We have a problem with our loved ones, our families that we've known all our life having to relocate because their kids suffer with respiratory problems, or our elderly people being told that they need to, if you want to prolong your life, you need to pack up and you need to move into a new location in order for you to live. So it's either you stay here and suffer, or you move and you prolong your life. And that shouldn't be so, because most of our elderly are on a fixed income. So you can't just pack up and leave what you've worked so hard for. So now that we're faced with this pandemic and this airborne virus that's out here, the sugar companies still continue to burn. And it's not like they don't have another solution. They can green harvest. but they choose not to green harvest because they're trying to meet the quota or they're trying to meet the deadline, and they're not considering the lives of the people in the glade. So we got our respiratory problem has to fight against the air pollution of the burning. Then you have this airborne disease also. So that causes us to be more vulnerable to the disease that's here. We're more vulnerable, and we're vulnerable without a lot of people didn't have the protection. I work on my job, and my job didn't have the correct protection. I work in the medical field. We didn't have the correct protection. My husband worked for the sugar company. They didn't give them the right protection. They didn't have anything for them, and people were being found positive on the job. So my husband had to decide, listen, I'm just gonna take a couple of weeks off because I don't want to bring what I may catch on this job back home to my family. So now I'm laid off, and he had to take a leave without absence. But those are the choices that we have to make because of what's going on, and we understand how important it is for us to protect ourselves due to the conditions of the air quality in our community. Because right now they're still burning when they have the equipment to green harvest. How dare you not consider our lives? So right now, our demands is for Nikki Fried, which has the capacity, which has the ability and authority to change the rules of the sugar companies, just like she came and she sat across the table from us and she showed or acted like she showed the consideration of what we was going through and how she could change this and change that. And now that she's in that position, I need for her to condition herself to turn her hearts towards the glades and make the right decisions towards the people in the glades and cause the sugar company to do what's right, which is green harvest. Green harvest. We asking for a 30-mile buffer around our homes, around our schools, around our businesses, and then phase out until it's complete green harvest. Why? For a healthier air, for a healthier people, for a growth in our economy here. It will bring more jobs. The same thing that you're burning up and you're calling trash can be turned into mulch, can be used for electricity, can be turned into paper goods. It's happening all around the world. But you continue to function in these outdated practices, and it's not right. You're really being stubborn. We ask that you green harvest, and we ask that you stop devaluing us. Why do I say that? Because we have neighboring communities east of us that is considered. And when the wind is blowing towards the east, there's no burning because they stood up and they had a voice. They had a voice, and their voice meant something. My voice means something as well. And I will not stop until change comes. I will fight to the end because they're not wrong for standing up. It's not wrong that they're not burning when the wind blow their way. What's wrong is that you're burning as the wind blow our way. So consider us. It's really racial discrimination that's going on.
All right, that was wonderful. We are on to our next speaker. So our next speaker comes to us from the Belle Glade community. His name is Robert Mitchell. He is a Belle Glade community activist and is also a member of the Stop the Burn campaign. Robert?
Yes, good morning to you. Good morning to you. And good morning to everybody. Thank you guys so much. Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay,
Yep.
good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking out the time. I appreciate this. Thank you. Okay. And so yes, thank you guys for joining in. And yes, I am a community member. I'm representing Belle Glade, Florida. And all my life, I've had to deal with the results and the impact of sugarcane burning. And it's come through our family, it's come through friends, it's come through everything that measures that you can think a community can face. And right now, in the middle of a pandemic, when you would think it would be common sense that we would stop something that actually causes respiratory problems, that's not happening. So I'm here to fully support the buffer. As you just seen my fellow sister Kina said, we have, when the winds are blowing to the east, we're not allowed to burn sugarcane. But when they're burning and blowing to the west, where you have mostly minority Black and brown communities, it's absolutely allowed, and the Black rain falls. And it's time out for that. So I'm here to stand along with you guys. I appreciate the science behind everything, because I know it even personally, things that happen and affect the voice when I travel from other states that have cleaner air, and when I come home and I can't even sing. Sometimes I sing and I cannot even sing from the impact of the smoke and burning and the ash. So so I just appreciate you guys coming in and bringing the facts. And yes, we are asking Nikki Fried that she steps up her demand for us, and she allows our community to breathe and to breathe quality air. So I just appreciate being a guest, and anything that I can do to get this situation more attention. That's what I want to do, because we are suffering right now. And again, with the effects of the pandemic, it's almost unbelievable that this is yet another issue we have to address, and that's a shame. Just as one of the representatives said earlier, why Florida? We're better than this. We're better than this. We care about our people. We care about our community. So let's just show that. Let's lead the way. And I'm hoping that can be done. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you for all the work that you do there, and your consistency in running as a candidate for Belgrade City Commission. And we wish you luck in the coming years, and all the work that you do there to protect directly impacted community. Our final speaker today comes to us from Florida A&M University's Institute for Public Health, and we'll be speaking on the public health impact of the sugar burning in South Florida. Please welcome Dr. Donald Axelrod. And let me take you off mute. There you go. Can you unmute yourself? There you go, Dr. Axelrod.
Lakey, thank you very much. I should say here, I represent Physicians for Social Responsibility Florida, not the university. But in my day job, I do teach environmental health, factors in the environment that affect human health, and toxicology, the science of poisons. Regarding poisons, in many cases, you can't see them. If you put a generator too close to a window, you may get carbon monoxide in your house. You can't see it, but it'll kill you. Now, as regards sugarcane burning, the toxic compounds are clearly visible. They're in plain sight. It's the smoke. What is smoke? Well, EPA would call it particulate matter. And it's a criteria pollutant. It's one they set standards for. It's one they carefully monitor. It's one they recognize as highly toxic to human beings. Our lungs are not meant to get a load of particulate matter. Our lungs are only supposed to get air. And US EPA has standards for particulate matter 2.5, particulate matter 10. And these things are highly toxic. I think Dr. Saf mentioned this. We've got 7 million deaths a year worldwide from particulate matter. In the United States, we've got 2 million. And I noticed someone sniping in the background that burning sugarcane is nothing like burning tobacco, and where's your references? Okay, 200,000 deaths, Benjamin Bowe, 2020 JAMA. Read it and weep. And if you don't weep, there's something wrong with you. What does PM inhalation do? You've heard some of it: stroke, heart attack, COPD, reduced cognitive ability. It's particularly a problem in children because they breathe more per unit body weight. And as has been said, this is an environmental justice issue. It's almost scandalous. I mean, if you look at environmental justice, what is the benefit cost here? Well, the benefit, I guess it goes to the companies that grow sugarcane, and it goes to people nationwide who get sugar at a very small, lower cost than if the sugar companies went to green harvest. But it's also, as we've heard, a matter of environmental justice, and that communities of color are getting the great burden of the smoke. This is something that should not happen. Burning of biomass, in this case, sugarcane, is not good for human health. We already have too great a PM issue in this country. It is causing death. It's widely recognized, and we have easy ways to reduce this or even eliminate this smoke from burning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Oxrod. And to carry us out, and before we open to questions, and I just want to make sure that everyone who's here on Zoom recognizes that the questions will only be open for press. This is a press conference, and so we are open to questions from the press. I see one question from Mike Vasalinda already, but if you are press and you do want to ask a question, please announce yourself as press and let me know where you're coming from if I don't know you personally. And we will be taking questions from the press after Dr. Kessler takes us out. So we are going to finish by wrapping it up with the president for Physicians for Social Responsibility Florida chapter, Dr. Howard Kessler.
Unmute. Okay, good. Thank you, Lakey. Well, I don't think, we have all the science, and that's not a mystery. And I don't think anyone could have said it any better than the person from Belle Glade who made the statement that it's not right, it's not wrong for people to advocate not to have the smoke go their way. They want their voice to be heard. But there's something wrong when you allow the burning unidirectional and you don't hear the voices of those least affected. And they are affected. I mean, if smoke didn't bother people and it just went away, we wouldn't have all the problems of smoke that is around the world and in this United States as well. But that fairness factor, the factor that it's okay to burn in one direction and not in the other, has to end. This is not a state where we should be tolerating any sort of this nonsense or prejudice that is now, if they don't correct this, being supported by our political government, and that's wrong. So I thank all the contributors to this press conference. I thank the press for being here, and I'm looking forward to some good questions for our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kessler. I am going to open the mic for Mike Vasalanda. Mike, I'm trying to find your question in the chat, and it's so far back, I'm having a hard time. So if you could just go ahead and ask the question. Oh, it's Jake. Okay.
Really sorry about that. I didn't have my webcam hooked up. Yeah, so there's been a couple local. I know this is kind of a sort of adjacent point. It's not really on the sugarcane burning per se, but there's been a couple local leaders in down in South Florida who have been sort of starting the conversation of potentially putting some more local control back in the hands of local governments on pandemic restrictions, sort of similar to the way that it was set up at the beginning of the year, where local governments are the ones who are either issuing stay-at-home orders or restrictions on restaurants, etc. Was curious what Physicians for Social Responsibility, if they would like to see Florida return to a similar executive order as we saw earlier in the year, if that's something they'd like to see.
You've got permission to unmute Dr. Kessler, and you as well, Dr. Staff. And Dr. Axelrod's already unmuted.
Okay, so I'll leave myself unmuted for the future. And so, Jake, thank you for the question. My personal opinion is that there needs to be not just local involvement, but it has to be coordinated. This virus is like a bird. The bird doesn't recognize when it flies from Tallahassee to Thomasville that it's entered another state. There are no geographic boundaries for the virus. There's no geographic boundaries when we address this issue. But certainly our state has not done the minimal that needed to be done. I mean, a simple mandating the use of face masks should not have been pushed down to the county and cities of our state. This is something that the leadership from the top of our state should have, from day one, saying, we have a problem here. We're preparing for it. We encourage you to wear masks. And if you don't, we're going to mandate it. And they didn't do that. And so, this is something that yes, we need, whatever the science is telling us that we need to do to address this, that's what we have to do. But I said from the very beginning that this is not a political issue. This is a health issue. And one of my good friends corrected me at one of these press conferences and said, no, this is a political issue. And she was right. It shouldn't have been a political issue, but it turned out to be a political issue. This is a health issue. It should have been directed by our experts in health from day one and not politicized. And now we're playing catch up in a terrible way when we have so many deaths in the United States that it's not just embarrassing, it's heartbreaking for the loss of all the people that have lost family to this virus, many unnecessarily. So yes, I think that whatever science dictates, using a coordinated effort between the local governments and higher up in the state governments and the country as a whole has to be a coordinated effort.
I'll say something.
Okay.
It is proven that face masks reduce transmission of COVID-19. There's no doubt about that. Someone out there wants a reference, Donald Milton 2020. There are plenty more. It would seem that we should have a national mandate. If we can't do that, we do it state by state. But the fact that we don't have it is costing people their lives. And it's an irresponsible act not to take action on this.
Dr. Staff, did you want to say something?
Mute.
You have permission to unmute if you do.
I have nothing further to add. I think my colleagues have spoken quite eloquently on this. Thank you.
Right.
I would say one other thing. I don't think many Americans understand this, but we are an international embarrassment as far as the number of cases transmitted, as regards the number of deaths. I mean, what we are performing at is something like a developing country, not a highly developed country. And the reason for this is we've taken no national coordinated action. We should have had a 2-week shutdown for all 50 states early on in the pandemic. We should have mandated masks early on. We should have provided advice on 6 feet distancing. We did none of these things. And we have over 250,000 Americans dead, your neighbors, your grandparents, your friends. It's a tragedy, and it could have been prevented, and it's not too late to slow down the transmission of COVID-19 by wearing masks and taking other preventative actions.
Fantastic. I'm not seeing any other questions from the press. I'm just going to give it 2 seconds here in case I missed a question from the press. If you're from the press and you want to ask a question, please announce yourself in the chat and I will take you off mute, or you can type your question. All right. Seeing none, Bruce from Politico is typing, so hold on just 1 second. Bruce, do you want me just to take you off mute? Just trying to find you. And I'm not seeing you. There you are. All right, go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, thank you. What authority does Nikki Fried have to stop the burning at the sugarcane fields? And why in particular are you all asking her to take the action? What about the governor? What about DEP? Why just Commissioner Fried? Is it because she's a Democrat? Thanks. Did you hear me?
Yep.
So I'll lead off, but I won't answer your total question. And it's good to see you, Bruce. My comments were very pointed to the governor. If you came in late, and if Lakey can provide that recording to you, I specifically went to the governor for leadership. But the Secretary of Agriculture has a large role in this, and I'll leave this for one of the others to further on. But I directed my comment. I'm not exclusive to Governor DeSantis, but for me, he's the head of our state, and of course, Nikki Fried is our agricultural commissioner.
I see that Dr. Saff is prepared to answer. I've given you, there you go, Dr. Saff.
Yeah, I think, hi, Bruce. Nice to see you. Quite simply, this is predominantly an agricultural issue. It's where agricultural biomass plant burning is harming people's health. Nikki Fried has been very outspoken in trying to protect the health and welfare of Floridians. She's repeatedly mentioned that it's important that Floridians wear masks. So she is very concerned about people's health. And likewise, since this is an agricultural issue, and since she is the head of the Department of Agriculture, our concerns are addressed to her, although we will certainly be addressing the governor in the future as well.
I think Nikki Fried is a logical person to approach. And Bruce, I'm sorry I missed you at Halloween, but there are other parties in the government that have a stake in this, and one would be DEP, because I very much, in fact, I am certain that the air quality standards are abrogated when the smoke is blowing anywhere. We have too much PM 2.5, PM10 in the air, even without sugarcane burning. And this just adds insult to injury. So air quality standards are not being met. Nikki Fried has, the responsibility of looking after agriculture, and green harvest would be better as regards health, it'd be better as regards climate change. And it is something that should be looked at seriously. I mean, are people willing to pay a very small amount extra for their sugar so they don't poison a bunch of people of color in South Florida? I kind of think they would. I would.
And I just want to comment, I'm not an expert on green harvesting, but green harvesting is being done in other environments with sugarcane successfully. And I hesitate to go in and make a case for green harvesting as far as jobs it can produce and all the other spin-offs. But I leave that to others that are carrying this fight to cover those areas. But as physicians for social responsibility, we're focusing on the health, and that's where our direction is focused.
Right. And I'll
I would say that in the future. Go ahead.
Go ahead, my FAMU Rattler. Go ahead, my fellow Rattler.
Well,
I'll give the floor to you. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I would say sometime in the future with the new government that green harvesting of sugarcane will involve getting carbon dioxide emission reduction credits. I think it'll even start to pay a little bit of money for going that route, because burning obviously produces carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, and getting rid of this biomass some other way is much more climate change friendly. Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And absolutely, I just wanted everybody to know in regards to green harvesting, this is something that the industry already practices, especially if it's too wet to burn. So this is not a measure or anything that's so big and unthinkable that can't be done, because they practice this already. And green harvesting, it does have the ability. I need to further add that in these communities that we're talking about, as Dr. Kessler said, with health effect, but we also have economic issues, and this green harvesting could has a great way to bring in more economics to these communities, to lift the community up all the way around. For example, the trash that they actually are burning off the leaves, this can actually produce biofuels. So this is something that can bring many opportunities to our communities, and on top of that, have us breathing well and health impact in these communities actually brought up to standard, as we see in other affluent neighborhoods, as we would say. So green harvesting is a great way to go, and hopefully that's what we can do, and we already do it. So it's not like they don't know how to do it. So yes.
Great. That was wonderful. Did anybody else? And I just wanted to add to that, back up what Robert just said, which is that less affluent countries like Brazil and Zimbabwe and Cuba are all basically switched to green harvest, right? And so the United States, in a highly affluent area, where health impact is really high, especially on our Black and Brown communities, is not up to standard to an affluent country that should be leading the way here, especially both on the COVID situation, but also in this situation when we have other countries that have had a mass switch that are far behind us in technology and economy. So it's time for Florida to catch up. Dr. Kessler, did you?
I was wanting to say, I think Dr. Saff wants to say something.
Dr. Saff, do you have the ability to get off to speak? There you go.
No, I think you covered it, Lakey. Thank you.
Great. Well, I think that's a roundup, and then I don't see any other questions from the press. The contacts that did put their information in the chat. I will send you the recording and a few quotes, some video of the burning that is available for us to share with you. Thank you everyone who attended today. Thank you to the doctors, and thank you to Physicians for Social Responsibility and Florida Clinicians for Climate Action for stepping up on this issue. I hope that people will take this information to the holidays and share with your families on Zoom, and do more to spread the love and take care of each other in this time of year when we celebrate each other and our lives together. Thank you everyone. And I see you, Kara. If you were not with the press and you want me to send you the video, go ahead and put it in the chat, and I will catch you up with the video. Thank you everybody for attending, and we will follow up with you with the video and the list of the names of the speakers and their titles. Thanks everyone. Have a beautiful holiday week.
Thank you,
Bye
Lakey.
everybody.
Bye-bye.